If you have already started activating your core with isometrics, it's time to take the next step. In this video, we are moving into integration, which is phase 2 of my 5-step cycle of muscle maintenance. During integration, we're taking our single joint isometrics and translating them into more full body complex isometrics. These are the very positions that we need in our daily lives. As we activate muscles, we are preparing them for movement. So if you want to create a more strong and stable core without wrecking your joints, this is your next step. So let's get started. Welcome to the Longevity Lab by Fitness Integrated Science. My name is Lauren Irk, and in this video, I'd like to show you a glimpse of my 5-step cycle of muscle maintenance, phase 2, which is what I call integration. Now, integration is taking a lot of isometrics and putting them together in full body movements. You're going to find these isometrics to be very challenging, so pace yourself. I'm going to give you lots of modifications so that if you don't want to go into the full expression of these positions, you can modify. So as we get started, I'd like you to come onto your hands and knees. If you don't like putting your pressure on your hands, you could certainly stand up and place your hands on top of a couch or a chair or something like that. As we begin, I want to start by just honing into the first 2 motions, which is going to be flexion and extension of the spine. Spreading your fingers wide apart, I want you to tuck your pelvis under in a posterior pelvic tilt. Already we're feeling our spinal muscles. As you do this now, move your shoulder blades off of your back and start to pull your hands isometrically towards your knees. Now that action alone, that isometrics really brings in our spinal flexors. From here, as we roll our shoulders off our back and drop our head, we're coming into a rounded spine. When you have achieved that position, I want you to hold this here for about 6 to 10 seconds. Try not to do it so hard that you start cramping up. This should feel like a gentle activation of those muscles. Good, and as you inhale, I want you to lower that down and take a little bit of a break. Now begin to initiate extension by lightly pressing your hands forward and pushing your knees back. What you're noticing is muscles engaging in your lower back, the front of your shoulders, the flexors, as well as your hip flexor muscles right here in the front of your hip because your knees are stuck on your mat. As you do this, begin to lower your waistline down, but only enough where you can maintain a certain amount of tension and not jam up your back. So as we hold this here, let's just maintain this position again with no cramping or shaking. You should feel like you're distributing this muscular tension through multiple joints. And then finally, release it. Now I'm just going to open up this a little bit more. If this is too much for you, keep your knees under your hips. If you notice, I have a lot more to maintain here. So now as I begin to tuck the pelvis under again, coming into that posterior pelvic tilt and feeling my glutes, I'm going to start to lightly pull the knees and the hands together, which becomes much harder when I'm further apart. Be careful of your pressure on your hands here. Tucking your chin, we are still feeling that effect of the cat. Holding here for a few seconds, breathing gently with no shaking, and then release it. Now, if you need to take a break with your hands, do that. Now, as we push the hands forward and push the knees back, you can really feel muscles in your back engaging, feeling your abdominal muscles bracing as well. And as you hold this, if you like, you can start to drop your hips down into more extension. Now, I don't want you to just plop down. I want you to only come down to where you can maintain tension in your back, the front of your shoulders, and the back of your hips. Holding that here for just a few seconds, breathing gently, and release it. Now, if you again want to take a little bit of a break, move your wrists and hands around for just a second, and we're going into our next phase. From here now, I'm going to lift my knees completely off the floor. This is totally optional. I'm going to do a variation of what we might call the classic plank. So instead of being straight like a board, I'm going to intentionally tuck the pelvis round the shoulders and try to flex the spine. Now notice it is really tough to try to pull your hands and your feet together. So let's just hold this here for a moment, breathing gently. A lot harder, drop your knees if you need to. And then rest, coming back down. Now, if you can push your hands forward and push your knees back, simply allow your hips to drop just enough to where we're feeling activation in our back muscles, but we are not, again, jamming that lower back. So this is a much different variation of plank, holding and breathing. And then finally lift the waist and come down. Now, if you got out of that and you felt like your lower back was jamming up, you let those hips drop too far. It's very, very subtle. So now as we have a little bit more awareness from the front and the back of the spine, let's move into the classic plank, stacking the shoulders over the wrists, tucking the toes under, extending the knees, and holding plank position. Breathing gently. Good. Now really work on distributing that pressure. We have pressure in the shoulders. We have pressures in the abdomen, the fronts of the legs. We're tightening around the knees. We're pressing into the toes, even engaging our shins. And then we lower that down. Now, if we look at this hand and back here, I'm just going to let this shoulder externally rotate as I turn my body away from it. So if that's impossible to do, you can come down to your elbow. You can also change your hand position so that the elbow and the wrist can connect with the shoulder properly. Make sure your hand is directly under the shoulder. Now I'm going to isometrically pull my hand towards my knee. This position is going to be lateral flexion of the spine. First, I'm just going to leave this knee on the ground gently, just working on honing that contraction right there at my waist. And I realize that not everybody is able to rotate very far as the other person. So figure out what works the best for you and stay there. Then as we exhale, we come back down. Now I'm going to try 2 more variations. Inhale, breathing. Exhale once again, externally rotating. The shoulder is stacking right over the wrist. Try to stack that right shoulder over the left. So we have external rotation here. We have lateral flexion here. I'm lightly pulling my hand towards my knee, but now look what I'm going to do. I'm going to add hip abduction. So I'm training not only this hip, but I'm training the side of my waist here, the side of my waist, and the muscles that externally rotate both the hip as well as the shoulder. A lot is happening there. Try to really keep that leg strong that you're holding up. The more activation we use, the lighter it's going to feel. And then finally, we release that and coming back down with control. Now for my last variation, this is going to be an option for you. We externally rotate again through the shoulder. I'm going to press down and out with my hand, pulling the hand towards the knee towards the hand, adding that leg, or you can leave that foot on the ground and pick up your bottom leg. Now that we've opened up the distance from front to back, we have a lot more work to do, not only with those hip flexors, but the hip abductor muscles on the bottom hip. From here, working on stacking those shoulders, much, much more challenging isometric than even what we did before. And then exhale and come down. Now as we move into extension, I invite you to come all the way down now onto your belly. Bring your arms to your sides and press your hips into the floor. Tightening into your gluteal muscles, press those hips down. As you inhale, extend the spine as much as your body is comfortable. So some people will not be able to come off the floor hardly at all. Keep pressing those hips down, drawing the shoulder blades into the back. So we're getting retraction across the scapula, extension into the hips, and extension into the spine. And then as we exhale, we come all the way down. For the second one, we're going to add a little bit more hip extension as we begin moving that leg off the ground, if possible. And then if it's appropriate for you, you can come back here. Now, if you're dealing with some spondylolisthesis, maybe some stenosis in the spine, osteoporosis, you need to modify this as much as you need to. Some people may just be giving themselves the intention of coming off the floor and not really doing it. And then exhale, coming right back down. Now, on this next one, I'm going to place my hands on the ground and come back into all fours. As we take that leg in back, this is going to be a much lesser position for the spine. But now I'm going to bring in the opposite shoulder. So I'm just holding this in neutral. I want to squeeze into the gluteal muscles on the back, the shoulder muscles on the front, and feel the activation of the core all the way through from the shoulder to the opposing hip. Breathing gently. And then release that all the way back down. And we've been doing a lot on the same side, so now I'm going to ramp up to this last variation, and as you inhale, let's extend from the hip, reaching to the back, flex from the shoulder on the opposite side, and now we actually flex into the knee. Now when we do this, we are actually shortening that hamstring, which is going to put more pressure on the hip. And if you'd like to take this a step further, you may even reach back, either taking the foot or even just reaching near the foot. So we have shortening across the shoulder and the contralateral hip, holding breathing. and release that back down. Wonderful. Let's slide that back knee now in between the hands in front and have a seat. Now, as you have a seat, I'm just going to sweep this leg around from the back. As you do this, we're coming into a seated twist. Now, this is a classic twist that you've probably seen performed in many modalities, Pilates, yoga, whatever. If this is too much for you, you can start off by uncrossing the legs. You can also just extend this bottom knee and perform it this way. Wherever you are, make sure that both of your hips are pressed into the floor. Keeping your torso upright as we move into rotation, place one hand behind you. Now we've got our spinal extensors. As I take the opposite arm to the knee, I'm feeling work in my inner thigh muscles. I'm feeling work in my core, and I'm also getting work in my shoulders as I roll the shoulder off my back and roll this shoulder into my back. So again, we have a multi-joint isometric. Each time you inhale, sitting up taller, and then as you exhale, we're slightly rotating to the side. Now, I'm not pulling myself around. I'm relying on my muscles and their ability to contract to be able to do all of this. Breathing gently and release it. So now as we turn to the other side, I'm just going to jump right into plank. Now, you pick one of those three variations. We can start plank off by just moving with cat and cow. We can start moving those legs a little further apart, or we can go into that full expression of plank, which is where I'm going to go. So as we spread our fingers wide apart, let's just hold our plank position, keeping the shoulders directly stacked, directly over the shoulder of the wrists, and really tightening across the scapula as they roll off of the back a little bit, working into my chest muscles. We're tightening into the abdomen. We're squeezing into the quadricep muscles, tightening across the knees, even pressing into the toes. And then I'm just going to take my back knee and drop that to the floor, which immediately starts to give me relief. I give a chance to relax. Now, pressing this shoulder down, or the hand down rather, stacked directly into the shoulder, I'm rotating my body around now, coming into that external rotation of that shoulder. If this is too much, you can also come down onto your elbow, all right? So holding this here, I'm isometrically pulling my hand towards my knee, placing the opposite hand on the hip. You're feeling some hip extension, the back of your hip behind you. And as you rotate, do you feel how your whole spine is performing rotation? As you do that, I want you to draw that shoulder blade into your back and imagine that you're lifting your chest to the ceiling here, holding and breathing. And then exhale, come back down, take a break. Feel free to come off of your hands if needed. Now I'm going to go through the same progressions on this side. As we inhale, we extend that knee back, externally rotate. You can see I just swung that leg around a little bit to make it less pressure on my knee. Tighten into the waistline, drawing the hand to the knee. Stack the shoulders one above the other if you like. Take your gaze up. And now we can add a little motion from the hip. So pick up that leg, and as we create that contraction here, it's going to stimulate muscles in my waist. On both sides, I am now working harder. And you can tell this is much more challenging to hold this position. I know a lot of people like to add the opposing shoulder. It's completely up to you. And then exhale, release. Now we're coming into our third variation, which is actually the hardest. So this is completely optional. Pressing the hand into the floor, we spin that around again. I have a shortened distance between the hand and the knee, and I'm coming back where I left off. If you'd like to take it a step further, drop that back leg. We're going to pick up this bottom leg. So now I have greatly opened up the distance from front to back in my side plank. You can see much harder on this shoulder, much harder in the spine, much harder to hold that rotation. And now our goal is to not shake, which is so challenging, right? Why would we not want to shake? Because we actually are not trying to overpower our muscles. We're trying to activate them here, right? Taking a deep breath in, and then exhale, we slowly come down. So now as we come back down onto our belly, which is a much needed break, let's notice how we feel. Pressing those hips into the ground. Again, let's take the arms directly down beside the body. Squeeze the shoulder blades together, and now we practice extension through the trunk. You may notice that by going through this sequence, your extension is even better as we pull those shoulder blades into the back. And if you cannot get off the floor, totally fine. Just go where you can. Exhale and release it. Now let's pick up our back leg, which is going to further engage our gluteal muscles. As you inhale, let's move the upper body off the floor. Again, if you do have one of those spinal issues that I discussed before, particularly with osteoporosis and your doctor has said don't bend backwards, just be mindful that it doesn't take much to activate these muscles. You may be really close to the floor. I want you to squeeze those shoulders back, really start to tighten up the glute. And the more that you tighten the glute, you can actually shift the muscular stress to a different area of your body. So always think to yourself, how can I move the stress throughout the body into multiple joints? So now as we come back onto all fours, which is a little easier on our backs, we have a little more room to move, I want you to tighten up into the core. Now as we take that leg straight back, we feel as though we have a greater distance to travel because we're no longer laying on our stomach. So now give that an opportunity to squeeze that glute. And now I'm adding the opposite shoulder. I don't like to do this necessarily on the stomach a lot because many people don't have the ability to get their arm level to where the floor would be. So let's say that I'm here, totally fine. Just move to whatever level of shoulder flexion your body currently has. Try to pull up out of that waistline, breathing gently. And then exhale, we come down. Now feel free to take a break and also take the pressure off of your shoulders. Now we add one last variation where we shorten those muscles a little bit more. Each time we do this, we are honing those contractions. Reaching from front to back, let's go ahead and bend that back knee so we have our hamstrings working, our gluteal muscles working. And then if you like, you can contract all down through the retractor muscles on the opposite shoulder. We're adding a twist to the mix. See if you can touch the two. It's kind of a nice thing to check out every so often. Obviously, lever length and mechanical ability go into that, but just even giving yourself the intention of that is a great isometric as far as strengthening the back of the body. And then as we exhale, we come right back down. So as we finish, let's take the other knee in between the hands and sit on the outside of the hip. So again, just to review, when I bring this leg out, the classic position might look something like this, where I have the legs sort of wrapped around each other like a classic yoga posture. Not necessarily that important. I could uncross that and be here, sort of separating those legs out to the side, or straighten that leg. I could even be here. So now as we sit up nice and tall, very important, we're already getting that nice isometric into the back. Now, rotation through the spine. Hand behind me helps me to keep the upper body strong. Place your hand on the knee and hand pressed together. Take a deep breath in. And then as we rotate, squeeze that left shoulder back, right shoulder forward, maintaining that upright posture so that every time we breathe, we're focused on that. Remember, no shaking, no cramping, nothing like that. Just holding this should feel really good. And then exhale, release. Now, if you come back to your final position, that plank position, I want you to notice that plank is now easy peasy. It is not hard to hold this at all because we have strengthened muscles around the core from front to back. So I hope that you have enjoyed this video. If you like more information about the 5-step cycle of muscle maintenance, I use this all throughout my platform in many areas of the body. It's called Fitness Integrated Science TV, and I will put a link below. Lastly, if you like this video, give me a thumbs up and share it with anyone that you know that I can help. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.